All right, it's the end of the session. I'm here without Wallace. Wallace and the family just went inside. This is Wallace's roadmap to success. So Wallace, I think, is basically a dog that is a little bit, he's been fearful. I think he wasn't properly socialized. The family actually got him as a puppy after his critical socialization period. And then a family member had a health issue and they weren't really able to take him to puppy classes. And I think he missed a very important developmental step. This is why it's so important that your puppy into puppy classes. A lot of people think my puppy doesn't need puppy classes. It likes everybody. It's just the developmental stage they go through. If you take advantage of it and socialize your dog properly, i.e. getting it around, exposed to a lot of things, then it kind of is easy to do. If you don't, you have to work at it, which is what we worked on today. So we started off by talking about, first thing we did, we met outside. And so I'd like the family to arrange to have people come by and from Wallace to meet people that way. It's a little crooked. So basically, if you meet outside, there's a stimulation, which is a distraction. There's a lot of room and it allows the dog to be comfortable. I left a trail of treats. Wallace came up to me. And remember, if he gets stuck, and he's just staring and barking, try to call him away and try to drop some treats behind him, get him moving around. And you'll notice that as he gets more comfortable, you'll be able to get closer and closer, but don't pull him. We gotta let the dog feel empowered. And then ideally, we love to have the dog come up and sniff him. And so when the guest is out there, make sure that the dog approaches from the side or slightly from behind, not straight ahead. And the guest should not try to talk to them, no eye contact, no big movements, no tries to pet. The guest could kind of throw some treats, but it'd probably be best if the family dropped those treats at first. And then after he felt, we spent about 2 or 3 minutes. He started seeming less anxious. He was barking less. Then I had the guardians kind of threw some treats behind him. The guardians kind of called him away. He saw those. I stood up. Then we walked for a little bit of a block, just halfway down the block and back. And he was a lot more relaxed. Then we came back and we hung out outside. So if you can, after that, it'd be nice if you can have him meet outside. And I would probably do the click for looks and follow some of the steps that are in the video above. We don't want to correct or disagree with the dog when it's barking. It's expressing itself, saying, I feel uncomfortable with whatever X, Y, or Z is. So we want to just simply increase the distance between the dog and whatever he's reactive to. Now, we can set dogs up for success by getting them a little exercise ahead of time. So maybe we could have our friend Zach come by and walk Wallace before people come over. And if it's too much for Zach, then have Zach just come by and walk with you guys, or just have one of you guys singing for a walk. Don't overdo it. We just want to 5 or 10 minute walk, take off that top level of energy and help the dog feel a little bit more relaxed and comfortable. I would also practice that teaching the dog to catch. So remember, you have one person sitting with the dog, the other person has the treat. Don't go 3 times, just launch it the first time and try to do it nice underhand throw. So all the dog has to do is open his mouth and the treat goes in the mouth. And if it goes in the mouth, great. If it doesn't, then the person sitting next to the dog picks up the treat and gives it back to the thrower. So the only way the dog gets the treat is by catching it, and that gives it a motivation. Now your dog, as a nice way to engage with guests, at whatever distance the dog feels comfortable with, the guests can throw treats to them. Now, I wouldn't get there too early. I would first do the meeting outside, go for a little bit of a walk. And if you can meet and go for a walk every time a guest comes over first, that's a nice way to kind of get their toes dipped in the water first. Then I would probably try to stay outside and do some click for looks. I'm gonna give you guys a clicker when we get done with this video. So as soon as Wallace looks at him, click, and then give a treat. Click, every time. After a while, you should start to see Wallace kind of looking at them more and then eventually coming towards them. And if they want to offer treats, they should offer in a flat hand. They should do it on either side, not in front. Don't lean over the dog. Don't encourage the dog, just offer it out there. Make sure the dog doesn't have to work for it. So it should be nose level or a little bit lower your hand should be. And if he doesn't want to come, ignore him. Tell the guest to ignore him. Don't try to get his attention. Wait. We want him to be very passive so that he can come to us when he feels comfortable. That will make him feel more empowered and give him more confidence. Now, when people do want to pet him, I'm going to do this as if the camera is the dog. What I do is I reach and I stop my hand about here, about an inch or 2 away from the dog's face. If the dog turns its head to the side, lowers its head, or backs away, he's saying, I don't want to be petted, please. The more that we withdraw at that point, the more the dog says, this person is listening to me. I can start to trust this person. If we reach over and pet it anyways, that's where the dog's, a lot of times, that nipping behavior comes from. Wallace already does that. So, and again, it'd be better if we offer a hand out to the side as opposed to in front, because we're all going to be leaning over the dog, and that's going to make him feel confronted. Okay, let me see. We also talked about some basic dog psychology. So anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically rewarding. Anything that your dog does in your presence that you don't disagree with is looked as if your seal of approval, and good attention and bad attention for you is pretty much the same thing. Dogs go through life, remember, probing to find out what is allowed and what is not allowed. And they're going to probe, and then if you say no, they come back and they're going to probe over here, and you say no, and they're going to probe over here. So when they're probing, they're not being defiant, they're doing their due diligence. So being consistent is really, really helpful for dogs, or excuse me, when we're consistent, it's very helpful for the dogs. So the more consistent we are, then the dog kind of knows what to expect next, and that will translate to confidence, and that will help the dog be less reactive. Remember, anytime he's reactive, increase that distance and let him walk away and throw treats behind him if you have to. Try to do it without a leash. When you're in the backyard, the leash can create a little bit of a tension. And when you do have a leash on it, make sure you are not leaving tension on that leash, because that will amplify his reactivity. So if you have to, just call him away. Okay, so we talked about importance of rules and structure. So basically, some of the rules I suggest is he shouldn't be allowed to be near humans when they're eating, about 7 or more feet away. Shouldn't be allowed in the kitchen when we're preparing food. The humans, I'd like to have the human eat about 5 or 6 bites of something before they feed Wallace. Just chips or cracker will work. And then the Guardians right now are leaving food out, I think, a little bit more longer than I like. So I like to put the food, I'd like to start feeding them out of a snuffle mat. So go to Amazon. I'd like you to place an order for 3 things. An Omega Paw Treat Ball. Get the medium one, and then get a snuffle mat. If you search for snuffle mat, the first one that should come up should be the gray one that I showed you in the video. I'd also like you to order some Tricky Trainers Soft and Chewy Chicken Liver Treats. Those are the ones that I was using. Get the big, there's a bag that's I think 14 ounce. It's about $10. Make sure you burp all the air out of the bag, and don't leave the bag open. They have no preservatives. They will dry out right away. Also, get some Old Mother Hubbards, and then get like some Zooks or a mid-level treat, and have them in all sorts of different places in your house. So you want to have 1, 2, and 3. So you want to use the lowest level of treat as possible, so that if something is overstimulated, we maybe can bump it up a level and regain the dog's attention. Remember, if he's not listening to you, don't keep on calling the word. Just say it once. Remember, dogs with the repetition, consistency, and good timing, you have 2 seconds to correct your reward. Don't ever try to compete with the nose. If his nose on the ground, you're never gonna win that game. Now, I should have said this earlier, but when you do have your guests come over, play the fetch game or the recall game that we did in the backyard. Have everybody come over and just start maybe having, so you kind of create a circle, 3 or more people, and we're about 7 or 8 feet apart, and you have the treat out, you hold up your hand like this before you call the dog. And at first I would have the guest not participating, just standing there, but not participating. So, and then when you see Wallace having that darty, happy behavior that he had when we were doing this, then you could maybe have the guest do it. And the guest would say, Wallace, but before you call the dog, hold the hand, you want to be holding your hand out, kind of sitting, but basically you'll be holding your hand out like this towards the dog. So when he looks at you, it looks like you have a treat in your hand. And as soon as he looks at you, start lowering your hand, go all the way to the ground if you have to. Now for the guests, it'd be nice if they could be positioned like this and say, Wallace, he looks at you, and you kind of go like this and go down the ground. And for you guys, I'd like you to have him sit, but for the guest, if he just comes and licks it off the guest's hand, that's fine. And if we won't take it off the guest's hand, they might drop it the first couple times. Eventually we'd like him to get there, but it's okay. As long as he's just coming to the guest, that's an indication he feels comfortable. Remember, if he's yawning, that's a displacement behavior. It's a way of him relaxing, an indication that he is relaxing. If he's licking his lips, if he's sniffing the ground, if he's stiff, if his pupils are dilated, those are all indications of stress. So dogs should be normally loosing and relaxed. Okay, let me see what else. We also went over the concept of premax. Premax means a less desirable behavior will earn me a more desirable behavior. So one of the ways that I do this is for the door. I go to the door and tell the dog to sit 1 time. Now the rest of the stuff is not typically premac. I'm adding other stuff to it. So I tell the dog to sit. If it sits, the door opens. If it doesn't sit within 2 seconds, I'm not going to repeat my command. I'm just going to sit down nearby, wait for 1 minute. After 1 minute, go back and tell him to sit. If he doesn't sit, I walk away and sit down for 2 minutes. Next time I sit down for 4 minutes, 8 minutes, and so on. But as soon as he sits, that door flies open. After a while, he'll go sit at the door as his way of asking to go out. You can do it going in and out the door. Before you prepare his food, tell him to sit. As soon as he sits, then start preparing. If he doesn't sit, you can kind of just wait a couple minutes, or wait a minute or so, and then try again. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. Let me see. So premax for if you want him on the couch. So he's actually very good at already sitting. That's called manding. So if you see him come and sit in front of you, he's asking, "Can I please sit in your lap?" So if he's just standing there, then tell him to sit, and then when he does, invite him in your lap. But when he does sit, that's a passive training we'll talk about in a minute, celebrating. Make sure we do recognize and reward him for doing those things. So there are probably other opportunities for some rules and structure. We don't want to think of rules, it's not a punishment, but it's just adding some more structure so he sees that I have to ask for things. Remember, a rule is something that he likes to do, wants to do, has the ability to do, but doesn't do without your invitation or permission. And the more that he is engaged in that sort of dynamic, the more he sees you as somebody who has more status than him and is more, can protect him and take care of things. Otherwise, I think he thinks he has to take care of things himself because we really don't have a lot of rules and structure in place. We also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is just what it sounds like. It's petting your dog for a reason. So if he comes up and nudges you, jumps up on you, paws at you, barks at you once, he's telling you what to do. Tell him to sit. If he's already sitting here, tell him to sit here, 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 or to lay down. Don't ask for a shake. If he complies within 2 seconds, then I would invite him on my lap or pet him or whatever the case may be. If he doesn't do it within 2 seconds, remember, playing hard to get works great. And then wait a little bit and then try again later on. Remember to use the watchword of paycheck. If you catch someone petting the dog when he's standing up, you suspect they forgot, say paycheck. It's not busted, it's just I think you might have forgotten. So even if I'm doing it right and somebody says paycheck, I stop, tell the dog to sit. If it sits, pet him. Remember, this is the best place to pet. Pet him on his chin if all things are equal, just never pet him on top of his head. And then I would say, actually, I asked him to sit, and when you came through the door, he stood up. But thanks for reminding me, I do forget to pet with a purpose. Let me see. Passive training. Which is what we do, basically celebrating the things the dog does that we like. I asked the guardians, what could he do to make to contribute to your group, and you gave me a list of things he didn't like. So passive training is really celebrating the things that he does like. So when he comes to you and he's a foot away from you, and you know he's coming to you, say come or here, and when he's 1 step away, and then pet him when he takes that next step. If he seems about to sit, say sit, and then pet him. Right before his butt hits the ground is when you say sit, and then you pet him as soon as he sits. Same thing for laying down. Name all your individual toys. And so every time he brings you a toy, call it the tuba, Batman, whatever these things are. And after a while, you're creating an association. You want to play with them and say, go get me Batman. I do this for water. I say water for my dogs, so my clients say martini or their favorite cocktail. I do it for food. I would come up with a name for one of, mine's be something else we need to go over, a name to eat, like your favorite restaurant or favorite food dish. And I do this with my dogs to stretch. Every time I see them about to stretch, I say stretch, and then I pet them. And now I can say stretch, and my dogs stick their butt in the air and do all that fun stuff. Do you need to teach your dog to stretch? No, but the more things you teach your dog to do on command, that gives you the ability, if the dog's a little distracted or nervous, you can distract them. It also boosts their self-esteem and confidence when they know what they can do to help you out. Now, we talked a lot about not necessarily exercise, but stimulation. And so, like I said, I wanted you to order the Omega Paw treat ball and the snuffle mat, but also look for treat dispensing toys and puzzles. There's a whole bunch of them out there. You can also just Google like DIY enrichment or DIY treat dispensing toys and puzzles. There's a whole bunch of them out there. But if you try to come up with one of these a week, it's a nice way for him to build his confidence and help with his problem solving. It keeps him occupied. There's a lot of benefits to that. Remember also to do scent games, which is hiding those treats around. So if you're going to say hunt, when he's like the treat's here, he's running towards it. When you say hunt, when he's 1 step away, he takes the last step and then licks up the treat. Remember, the order is the command word is the precedence. The command word happens, then the action, then the reinforcement, which is a pet or a treat or a reward. Now, if your dog doesn't know it, then you can use a clicker like I was showing you in the video above, or you can use a marker word like yes. So what I'm going to do for the marker word is do it after the dog completes the action. So if we're going to use a clicker, since I'm giving you one, so you tell the dog to sit. It doesn't know what sit is, if it doesn't know, let's say. So I would use, let's say this is the dog and this is the butt. I'm gonna raise the treat at an arc. When it gets up it puts its butt down, and then I would say yes, or good, whatever my word is, and then I put the treat in their mouth. After a while, now the dog knows, butt hits the ground, I hear the word yes, that's what they wanted, and it's gonna get me a treat. And after a while, you can start anticipating, go like this, sit, and then the butt hits the ground, and they put the treat in their mouth, and you would stop clicking it at that point. If you have problems with any of this stuff, training-wise, let us know. I'm happy to send a trainer out if you want to work on some stuff, but I think you've done a pretty good job on training him. However, dogs have self-esteem and confidence. The more tricks and commands they know, the more confidence they're going to have. So one of the things you might want to do is go to YouTube and look for easy dog training tricks. Teach him to do a circle. Teach him how to army crawl. Teach him how to go between your legs. We call that the under. There's a bang, you're dead. The more commands he knows, the more confidence he's going to have, and the more things you have to distract him. Let me see. We also, I guess that's pretty much about it. Now, if you have questions on the things that we went over, I want you to make sure you message me. If I don't hear from you, I assume that means that everything's going great. In my line of work, when there's a problem, the clients do let me know. I don't care if it's 2 minutes after I walk out your front door or if it's 2 years from now. If you have questions, let me know. That's pretty much it for Wallace's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.